Hello again. Now in this video I'm going to talk a bit about what it actually means to recover from the anxiety state. And it's not something I've really talked very much about during the course of these videos, but I think anyone using this method and recovering this way needs to have a clear idea of what they can look forward to. And it's often the case that people have false expectations as to what constitutes recovery. And they can be quite disheartened and disappointed and even depressed when they think they're failing to reach their goal. Now, recovery in this sense doesn't mean that you're going to be completely free of fear. As long as you're alive, there's always going to be fear. What you're aiming for is freedom from the exaggerated feelings of fear, from the sensitized feelings of fear. This is what the problem is, and this is what you're recovering from. Now, I know that many people may have heard of Claire Weekes or may have studied her, you may have listened to what I've said on these videos, and you would have thought to yourself, well, yes, that seems to make sense, that sounds logical enough, but I don't see how I, personally, can ever do that, simply because I am just too frightened to give in to the fear, to accept the fear when it's as bad as I get it. That just seems too much to ask. And of course I understand that, and there'll be many times in my own life where I've thought exactly the same thing. Yet this is the way for anybody. It doesn't matter how intense the fear is, this is a method that can work for anybody. Now, when I was first ill, when I was 18 and I recovered from that, strictly speaking, all I did was desensitize. I lost the exaggerated and frequent fear symptoms I was getting, and in the space of about 2 months I was virtually free of them. Now, having said that, I've said this before, I was in very perfect circumstances with which to recover. There was no stresses of any kind I had to deal with. And the process was very noticeable, very exactly as Claire Weekes had described it, in fact, when I did recover. Now, at that time, once I got over that, and for years afterwards, I really believed I was recovered for good. But, as I've mentioned this before too, I hadn't actually recovered the right way. I had never actually completely lost my fear or of the fear symptoms, especially panic, which I didn't properly recognize as for what it was at the time. And then it caught up with me many years later. Now, recovery is when you can have feelings. The recovery process is when you can still have all these feelings going on, but they no longer control what you do. They no longer dictate everything. You're not working your life around this thing all the time. This is what people do. There's so much they try and plan everything so that they're minimizing the amount of anxiety they feel. And everything is a kind of a juggling act almost, of trying to avoid situations, people, experiences, anything at all that's going to bring on these exaggerated feelings. And unfortunately, a lot of current anxiety treatments and therapies are aimed at trying to avoid having all these feelings of fear. And for that reason alone, it can be very, very appealing to people. Now, because of what happened to me in my youth, and because of what subsequently happened years later, I don't see avoiding any of these feelings as being a permanent solution. Because you're still left vulnerable, as I was. I'd gotten out of that state, yes, but I didn't realise until much, much later that I was still very, very vulnerable to fear. So, now, I do understand this, of course I do. This is the main thing that goes through your mind when you're in this state. You just want to be out of it. You want to be free of it. You want it to just stop right now and not come back. And people get frustrated and angry and depressed because of the persistence of anxiety. And it persists because of their lack of understanding of it and because of their attitude towards it, which I've explained in great detail on my other videos. And yes, I can say exactly the same thing. I've spent so many years in anxiety, cursing my fate and wishing it was gone and wishing there was anything at all I could do just to be rid of it. And at times I've looked around for alternatives. I've looked at different theories. I've looked at different treatments. And as I said, so many of those treatments were just geared towards avoiding feeling what you're feeling now. But none of this stuff ever worked for me. I couldn't see any purpose to it because I was still left with that fundamental fear of fear. So even if I succeeded in getting some of these avoidance tactics to work, it would never have totally cured me of it. Now you might say, well, so what? What does it matter as long as the fear's gone away? What does it matter how you do it? Well, it does matter. For the reasons I've said, it matters because what's the point of having half a cure if you've only gone so far, and if you've taken basically a shortcut to get out of an anxiety state? You're always going to be left with that feeling that it might come back. What if it came back? What would I do if it did? There's always that thought in your mind, and it's like living under a shadow of something all the time, a threat that never really goes away, because you need the purpose of recovering the right way, this way, is that you can actually think these thoughts, think, what if I get it again? And know that you won't get it again because there's no reason for you to get it again because you've lost your fear of it happening. Yeah, sure, you're going to get stressed at times. You're going to get all the usual symptoms of stress at times because of the circumstances of your life. But if you cure yourself the right way this time, it need never come back, because you can't ever get back into that anxiety cycle where you're fighting and feeding the fear all the time. And for my money, I'd sooner be in that state where I knew that even if fear returned full strength tomorrow, I could cope with it because of the way I coped with it in the past and the way I had lost my fear of it in the past. That to me is worth it, just to go through the extra practice and, yes, the difficulties of recovery. It's worth it for that goal in the end. Now, I want to tell you a bit about what happened to me yesterday, because that gives you a kind of an insight into what happens on the journey to recovery and what can happen. Now, Alongside days where you just feel totally consumed by fear, where this is all you can think about, just being frightened and all the stuff that's going on in your head and in your body. There are many such days, but also there are other days. And yesterday I had one of those other days where, for a little time at least, there was some peace, and all the stuff I'd been doing, all the practicing I'd been doing, kind of paid off for me. That was a very simple, very trivial thing I did, really, when you think about it. I've been lately I've just been getting so tired and so depressed by how I felt physically every time I tried to do anything. There's this balance problem, and the fact that my balance was never seemed to be stable, and everything I do I felt like I was drunk, and there was no enjoyment in going out and doing anything. I just really was reaching a point where I just didn't want to go anywhere, do anything. But knowing what I know, I thought, well, I can't let that state sink, can't let myself sink into that state again. I've been like it too much. So I thought, well, I'm just going to have to go ahead and do what I need to do and what I want to do with it all happening. I'm going to practice what I keep preaching to people on these videos and do it myself. So this is what I've been doing. It's not been easy, it's not been particularly enjoyable, but yesterday, well, I did a bit of Christmas shopping in the morning, and as best I could I just thought, well, I'll just do it as however I'm feeling now, and that's what I did. And that kind of acceptance, resignation to it just naturally reduced all the amount of tension I was carrying around with me, so I felt much better for it. So I did that, and then I came back home again, and I thought, well, I've got to go to the chemist, get a prescription. I don't have to, but I just want to go out and practice again, just like I did earlier in the day. So that's what I did. I just drove up to the local shops where the chemist is, and I thought, well, I'll just, take the same approach, do the same thing, just let it go, let it happen, let yourself feel dizzy if that's the way it's got to be. And all I did was I walked down past the shops and all, just down to the chemist. I was only out for about half an hour, but as I walked down to the chemist, for the first time in ages, I realised that I was actually kind of quite stable, in that my balance was actually quite steady. I thought, wow, this is unusual. I haven't felt like this for a hell of a long time. I couldn't remember the last time. I thought, wow, this is brilliant. Well, I wish this would last. And for the time I was out, I had this very, very strong feeling of reality. I was actually there, where I was, just strolling down the streets. I was actually there and conscious and aware of what was happening. Now, much of the time I go out, I'm so bound up in myself, so preoccupied with how I feel, that I'm scarcely aware of my surroundings. So I go around with this very strong feeling of unreality, because, like I said, I'm just concentrating inward. But yesterday, for just that time, I was actually there and present and noticing things again. And as I walked, I could get all the thing that's very strong yesterday. I could smell all the different, from the cafes and the takeaways, I could smell all this lovely food smell was wafting across. It was very strong. The smells were very strong, and normally I don't, I don't care much about food smells, and I'm not, not something I'm very interested in. But yesterday, I was so intensely aware of what I was doing that the smells, they smelled wonderful. All these different lovely fragrances coming at me on the wind, and this is brilliant. So I thought, well, if only this would last. I got my prescription, then I came back home again. But it was such a contrast to the way I usually feel. And it was a direct result of what I'd been doing, what I'd been practicing. There I was, just going out, being fully prepared to feel anything, to feel whatever I had to feel. And if my balance was off, and if the world around me looked unsteady, then okay, I was just going to be okay with it, just let it be there. And because of that, because I resigned myself to feeling like that, the feelings themselves kind of dispersed. I was quite surprised, really quite surprised that just, it had happened so quickly. Because I don't think I've really fully explained just how difficult this is, trying to navigate yourself around when you're feeling like this. It's like, it's not even an easy thing to describe. It's just that when I try and look around me, when I move my eyes around, it's like everything is in flux. It's like you can't maintain a steady gaze on anything. And it's very, very disorientating, because you feel so often that your balance is going, that you're actually kind of toppling over. And as you can imagine, trying to do stuff when you're feeling like that is pretty hard work sometimes. But there it was, just for that short time, it was gone, virtually gone. And, such a trivial, ordinary thing to do. And I think, well, you look at other people doing exactly the same as you are, and you think, well, they just take it all for granted. They're just doing, they're probably not even conscious of what they're doing. But it takes being in this sort of condition to really appreciate such simple things. And this is what is happening. This is what happens to you on the road to recovery. As you diligently practice accepting the way you feel, then you're kind of coming back to life again. You've been in this little nightmare world of fear for days, weeks, months, years even. And the rest of the world seems like, it's going on without you, and you're just in your own little horrible world. But then as you start to use these techniques, and as they start to work for you, as you really do them like I've been doing, then these little simple things like walking down the street past the shops can take on a whole new meaning and suddenly be, just wonderful, just brilliant. Now, I did similar today. I just went out for half an hour. And oddly enough, going out just for a walk is probably the hardest thing I find to do at the moment because of this balance issue. But today I thought, well, I did it yesterday, I'm going to do it today as well. I'm just going to let it all go on, whatever, however it affects me, I don't care. And so I went my usual route, and there was a bit of unsteadiness, but it was nowhere near what it usually is like. I was there, and I was totally accepting how I was feeling. And the difference was quite remarkable. It really was. So this is really just an example of what this approach means. In the beginning, it depends how sensitized you are. In the beginning, you might not notice much difference in anything you do. You might still find things are just as bad. But having this willingness to do it is what gets the process going, gets the ball rolling. And I've been through so many other symptoms in this way, but this particular issue I've had has been so... I've been obsessed with it because I was just sick and tired of it. I thought, I can't do anything properly with this going on. So I knew that some of it, only a little part of it, was going to be a kind of leftover effect from my stroke last year, but I also was aware that a greater part of it was just anxiety, nothing more. And what I did yesterday and what I did today absolutely proved that to me. So I think, well, I can do it again, and I'm going to show myself once and for all that all this anxiety, all these things that are still I'm stuck on, that finally, after all this time, I'm going to get past them. I'm going to be able to go and do what I want to do and what I need to do. And if the feelings are there, fine. If they're not, that's okay too. But I'm going to be there willingly accepting what's going on. And that's the reward for the practice I put in. Now, it sounds encouraging when I put it like that, and I know there's many people, they start off with hope, and I think, well, this sounds like it should work. But then they lose heart very quickly because things don't seem to happen quickly enough for them. They think, it's not working, basically, that's what they think. But yeah, that is a problem I've had. It's always been a problem I've had. I've expected too much too quickly. Yet I've kept on going. I've kept on going and going and going. I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to live the rest of my life like this. So whatever is left fear-wise for me to overcome, then that's what I'm going to overcome. Because I've had enough of my life gone to this whole thing. So I'm going to have some of my life back now. Anyway, I think that's kind of given you some sort of expectation of what recovery means. It means fear basically doesn't matter to you anymore, and the symptoms of fear don't matter to you anymore. And you can live your life knowing that whatever life throws at you and whatever fear you get in your life, you can deal with it because you've dealt with it when it's been at its worst. And it's at its worst when you're sensitized. And, that is such a marvelous thing to have achieved. Is, you've conquered your fear. And just think of how much more of life you could take part in if you've conquered your fear. Anyway, I wanted to really spell all that out because I think when you're in a state, you need a lot of encouragement. You need a lot of hope. You need to have your hope constantly reinforced. And this is what I try to do on these videos, is to reinforce these ideas to you, just to stress over and over that this is truly a way to recover. And it's not something that's just available to a few people. It's available to everyone. Anyone who's in an anxiety state, it's available to them. And, I consider myself a pretty hard case in terms of anxiety because I've had so much of it in my life. And things that it has allowed me to do, not least of which is allowed me to face panic, which is something I never thought I could do. This to me is more important than anything else I might achieve. It's the thing that I've sought after so many years. And yesterday was a really nice, encouraging event to me because I shall remember that very clearly. Very, very intense memory of it, and I shall use that in the future for whenever I'm faced with difficulties or whenever the fear comes back strong again, which inevitably it does at times. But I shall always remember these experiences of total acceptance because they will encourage me to keep on going until I'm finally free. And this is what I'm urging you to do. Don't be put off in the early stages by apparent lack of progress. It's only apparent. You are making progress every time you do anything with as much willingness of how you feel as you can manage. Every time you do that, you're adding to your recovery. You're making progress towards your recovery. Anyway, before I drift off into my usual ramble, I just wanted to let you know about that particular thing, because I think it's important to understand what recovery actually means, and to have in your mind a clear idea of what you're aiming for, a realistic idea of what you're aiming for. And this is, I can't stress enough just how good this method is. And there's so many others out there which promise all sorts of things which don't deliver. But this one does. But you've got to take it and use it. If you use it, you are guaranteed recovery. And on that happy note, I'll leave it at that for now. And I should do other videos like this one. And any particular things that come up, or anything you might ask me about, I will do another video. So in the meantime, get out there and practice this method and get your life back. That's what it's all about. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.